Hey y'all, it's Dustin. Welcome back. Sorry, I went a little MIA for a minute. It's been a second since I've made a video. Fun fact, I already filmed something this morning and my mind went completely off the rails and I might post some of it, but it was a journey. However, that being said, a few things did come up for me today, and I'll start off with why I wanted to make a video. I got a new deck, Tarot of the Crystal World by Brooke Penrose. I got this deck secondhand. I love getting secondhand decks. I cleansed it, but I started to flip through and do like a first reaction video to this deck this morning, and it invoked so much emotions in me that I had to switch gears and decide to film something a little different. So I am still going to show you the deck, or at least some of it. If you would like a full walkthrough of this deck, let me know and I will film that for you too. But this really got me thinking, that's why I love tarot, that's why I love art. Art is there to make you think, it's to make you feel something, and this definitely made me feel something. So, first of all, wait. Let me read to you the back of this deck. Here's the picture. It says, inspired by music, history, motherhood, magic, and stuffed to the brim with punk attitude, Tarot of the Crystal World is a fully illustrated interpretation of a 78-card tarot by Brooke Penrose. The cards are fierce, unique, challenging, inclusive, and emotional. The people inhabiting the crystal world are us, in flux with our past, dancing with our dreams, lost in time, and recast as players on a stage. So, the keyword there is inclusive for me. I really enjoy inclusive decks. I think it's important to have an inclusive deck for myself, and I'll get into why. So, as I'm flipping through this deck this morning, the cards out. This also came with like another Oracle deck, which I'm not going to include in this little go around. If you'd like me to, it's like a bonus Oracle deck that the artist had created. If it's something you'd like me to show you guys, let me know. But let's put that off to the side. Okay, here's the guidebook. It's very, very short. It does not give much. So for that, I would say that this deck, this can be a beginner deck, but I would say it probably would be a little difficult if you're just starting off. So just be aware of that. Anyway, here's the backs of the cards. Crystal. Here is the gilding, the sides. Beautiful. I think the card is linen. For those of you that care, I want to say those things because I know that some of us watch these videos to review decks or kind of get more information. Anyway, so as I was flipping through this deck this morning, now I will also preface this by saying some of these cards have naked bodies in them, nudity, so if that is something that you're uncomfortable with, please skip ahead, but I am going to be showing some body parts. So anyway, I hope that doesn't get me flagged on here. Regardless, worse, it's still going to happen. So I was immediately drawn to this deck because the art style, let me give you a few. The art style is very, very unique. It has some very muted colors, but also bright and colorful. And the style reminded me of Steven Universe. if any of you are familiar, it is a cartoon that was on Cartoon Network. But it reminded me of Steven Universe. But if you ever go back and watch the actual pilot of Steven Universe, like the OG artwork that was in the very first episode, this is very reminiscent of that. And the fact that the Steven Universe and the Crystal Gems, hello, the show is about Steven, who is a young boy who is half human, half crystal gem, and he is living with other crystal gems who are from another world, and they are there to teach him. So that show, if you've never watched it, is so amazing. It really helped me get through some very difficult times. It went on and on. The actual show itself was signed on to Cartoon Network and then was drug out over many years, like almost like a decade. And it was very controversial. The show itself can feel a little messy because like there was so much push and pull between the actual creator, Rebecca Sugar, and Cartoon Network. There were a lot of upset parents because it was one of the first cartoons to ever show a female and female couple, or like non-binary characters that didn't fit into a box, and a lot of parents were upset by that. There's two characters there, Sapphire and Ruby, who they're both female characters, and when they fuse together they create one character called Garnet. And so all of the crystal gems and the fusions, and they all represent our relationships, and like, you know, that show was so well done, and I wish that it wouldn't have been like cut at its knees. I think it had a great opportunity to really explore things that have not been explored in a cartoon. Anyway, so that's why I was drawn to this deck. God, it was like I remember watching Steven and feeling so seen, you know? So this deck really got me thinking about what it means to be seen, right? Another thing that I will share this, Lady Gaga has a new album out last week, Mayhem, and it's really been getting me in my feels. And sorry, the emails. Her album has really been getting me in my feels. So I'm remembering what it felt like to grow up in a small town and like have that music playing all the time, and having someone out there who saw me for who I am and said that it's okay to be who you are, you know, be brave and like be fearless. And I remember because of these things, because of Gaga, because of Steven, like I felt empowered. I grew up in a small town. It was a very small farm town. I was probably one of the only queer kids in miles. And I just remember there were days where I felt like I would not make it out. Like I was not going to survive. And if it weren't for things like this, things like Gaga, things that made me feel seen, to know that there were other people out there struggling with the same thing, or saying that I see you, even that small thing of like, I see you and I acknowledge you, was so important. That really changed the trajectory, and it put the fire under my ass to get out and change my life as soon as I could, and to connect with someone else like me. So that's where we're at with this video. There's a specific card in here. Not this one. This one kind of reminds me of Velma from Scooby-Doo. I don't know why, but Velma being Gustus just made me giggle. Anyway, there is a card in here. It's the Temperance card. So as I was flipping through this morning, doing my reaction, I didn't get much further than this because I was just in awe at this card. So here's the Temperance card. And showing someone who's intersex on the Temperance card to me was like jaw-dropping. the artist's decision to do this felt so important. And even though I may not be intersex, I may not be trans, I may not be any of those things, right? I feel like it's so important that the artist chose this, because I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be unseen or feel unseen, right? And so moments like this matter. And this is why art matters. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna let the siren pass. So anyway, the siren's gone. Sorry, I live next to a hospital, so it's constant. And I know I've heard it show up in videos, and it's quite annoying. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, temperance. I know how it feels to have a message that you're seen and yet you matter. And this is something like that. And it just felt so important to me. And it brought back all these feelings that I had as a young queer kid. You know, it brought back the feeling of Steven. It brought back the feeling of Gaga. It brought back the feeling of living on the internet and like just grasping for anyone to talk to. That made me feel like I mattered. And so the artist's choice to do this was so amazing. The only other time I've seen a card like this is in the world card. Typically they're in older generations of the tarot. Sometimes you'll see a similar intersex person back in the old cards, because the world was about becoming one and merging all the perfect harmony, right? It's about everything coming together. And so that's the other time I've seen an intersex card. But to use it on temperance really got me thinking. And usually this card, temperance, is about, we usually say balance or like moderation. And it made me start to think about like, I don't think moderation is the correct word. Balance, yes. I could see balance because the character is usually shown as like an angelic being, which how appropriate an angelic being is like, oh, I'm throwing cards here. Angelic being doesn't necessarily have to have wings, right? Here it shows a person pouring the water, and it usually shows an angelic being pouring two types of thing, like liquids in between two cups. Alchemizing something, right? Mixing something. So that's normally what the card shows. But this just made me, I sat with my thoughts and I took a few notes, so let me read them to you. Let me at least look at my notes. I put temperance should be more about modulation and not moderation. So to me, when I hear moderation, like, oh, you do things in moderation, that means to pull back a bit, you know, or only do things a little bit at a time. And I felt like that's maybe not quite right. Like, I hate that feeling of having to water yourself down for someone else's comfort. You know, it doesn't feel great that you have to, moderate. And I don't know, it just felt like that felt like a very, not negative, but just like weakened state, right? So modulation is more about, I think about music, like the key change. When you modulate, in music, you go up a key, you're key changing, right? So what you're doing is you're really honing in, and like in music, you're honing into that key, right? So it's not really about holding your power back. It's about finding the right power and like knowing how to tweak things and really alchemize things and fine tune things to create something new and create something better. So to me, that sounded like something much more, that this artist nailed this. And that felt like such a potent message, to not water yourself down. You deserve to live a full life. You shouldn't have to live in fear. You should be able to be yourself. And really learning about yourself and learning who you are modulating, right? You're not only are you learning yourself, but you're modulating and like navigating the world, right? Navigating others. So it's just more about a reframing in your mind of what that means, what this card means to me. And I wanted to share that. Another thing I put in here is optimizing potency. You know, if you really want something to be potent, you really want to optimize how strong it's going to be. Anyway, that's the theme that I came up with while I was rambling on. I'll show you a few other cards while I talk. But I basically wanted to say that, like, it's so important to make sure that others are feeling seen. With the state of the world right now, I live in the US, and like, I can't even, let's not even talk about it. I mean, we should talk about it, but like, we can talk about that for hours and we'll never get anywhere. But my whole point today is like, the reason I go out and I buy inclusive decks, or if I make sure a deck is inclusive, is because of this reason. Because that young child in me recognizes that others need to be seen, recognizes that others may want to feel, may need to feel this way, you know, and why it's important. It's important that art is there to make you feel something. It has a message, right? Beautiful. Something else I wrote down in my notes today was that visibility saves lives, and it does. I know that may seem dramatic to some, but it's the truth. And at first, even when I wrote it down, I was like, okay, visibility saves lives, how? But it does, because I can put myself mentally back in those states of being a child or being a teenager and feeling like I didn't matter. And it's things like this that it gave me hope, you know? It gave me something to look forward to. And I think that's important. So visibility does save lives. That's why it's important that we, as the current state of what's going on in the States, I cannot help but think about our trans brothers and sisters, our non-binary brothers and sisters, everyone who is being like put up on the line right now, specifically those people, because that's what I can relate to, but also all people of color. Like the United States right now is being absolutely fucking crazy. So we can get into that another time, but I think that it's so important that we stand strong and let these other people know that they deserve to be seen, you know? I would love to hear if you have ever felt seen by a tarot deck, or if you ever felt seen by music or a show, or like if you've ever had a moment of like, aha, oh my God, that's me. Or like, I love to hear those types of stories. So if you have one, please share. What else? The last thing I wrote in my notes is that no one should ever live in fear of being erased. No one. So that is why it's so important to share these stories and share these messages and find ways to connect. Anyway, thanks for listening. I know this is a bit random. I appreciate you sticking around. And yeah. Anyway, let me know what kind of content you'd like to see. I'm kind of at a standstill right now. I have a lot of ideas floating around, but I'm not sure if you want to see deck walkthroughs or flip throughs, if you want to know my thoughts on decks or certain cards, my practice. Yeah, let me know what you want to see. I would love to make more content for you. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Mwah.